Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Brubaker, and this is Career Search Lunch and Learn. And we're excited to see so many of you here, and we know that there are going to be more of you joining as we go along. I'm a career transitions coach, still trying to work on that phrasing. But what I do is that I work with individuals who are looking to make a transition, whether you're new to the job market, you've been looking for a while, you're looking to transition to a different kind of a role, or whether you're looking to look new to a new industry, or maybe even you're looking to work for yourself. Whatever the career transition is, my job is to help you figure out how to get there. And this is my only sales pitch. I'm going to add it into the chat once more too. But my role, and I'm glad to see that some of the people that I'm actually working with, is to do that. So what I do is that I will help you discover your skills, highlight those skills, and talk about them in a transferable way so that you can hire your next boss, hire your next organization. Don't believe in forever jobs, but we want to help you get there. Which leads to my next thing, saying that we know that you don't really want to be here. We're glad you're here. We're here to support you, okay, in whatever way that we can. But our goal is for you to join us, pick up the tips, the tricks, the networking, and then come back to share your success, which is what we're going to do in just a moment. Okay. So I do this as my labor of love. I'm going to add my information into the chat. One more thing, and I'm going to turn it over to Sue. Dana, we're going to let you introduce yourself in just a minute, okay, when you actually start the presentation. But wanted to go there first. So remember, we have a private group. Private group means that it's hosted on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn can't find it. Please join. We've got well over 400 and I think 480 some people right now. It's a good networking source. You can ask more questions, ask for support, share job opportunities. It's also where I'm going to post this chat and other resources from today as well as other things. So please join that as well. Sue, my long-winded approach this morning, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
That's great, Linda. I love how you just managed to weave a story together about everything we're doing here. Yes, you don't want to be here today, but I want to celebrate that you are here because you are the people showing up. Look how many of you were on camera today before I got spotlighted. It was like there were no hidden videos. It was really fabulous. I'm here to help Linda navigate. I keep my eye on the chat when things get complex and busy, but also to remind you that this is also learning. Today we have a guest speaker, but even if we don't, make sure that you write down your learning in the chat because that helps you solidify the learning. So don't just say, great point, Linda, and we have no idea when we're looking at the chat later, what did she actually say? Restate it in your own terms. It will become your own. In the meantime, I'll just remind everybody I'm the mentor with pom-poms. I will bring them wherever I can. I've done some local meetups here, hoping to get to more places across the US and maybe meet you all. But I love that I have so many friends virtually. I looked at everybody on here when I first got in and I thought, I know you all. I know you all. My husband thinks it's bizarre. Excuse me, I'm digressing. He thinks it's bizarre that I say I have meetings with friends that I know really well. And I think you have no idea how well I know these people. We're here to support you. I'm going to turn this over to Linda so we can get started with an exciting program. I'll put my info in the chat. Would love to connect. Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome. And by the way, we really would like to connect with you all. It's one of the reasons that we do these programs. Build your network. So for those of us who still have free accounts, we only have 5 connection messages a month. Please, if you see people in the group, go ahead and connect with them. Put your URL in, connect with people without having to use one of those connection messages. We know who you are. We want to support you. We're going to start with a very short session of quick wins. Okay. No more. We want to do this in no more than 10 minutes so that we can get into the program. Sue, can you keep me on target? Perfect. Okay. So if you have a quick win, please raise your digital hand and let's share your win. Hi, Sean. Go ahead. Sorry. You have to unmute. Diane?
Okay, all right, thank you. Hi, everyone. Sorry to take up a minute, extra minute. I'm pleased to say that I earned my Safe Six Scrum Master and Practitioner certification.
That's congratulations. That's hard. And it's another great tool to add to your toolbox. One of the reasons that I like that as a quick win is that it shows that you're continually developing your skills. You've got something new that you can add, not just for whatever job you're looking for, but whatever you want to do. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a quick win today? Wow. That's a first. Then if that's the case, do we have a couple of newbies? People who are new on the call who would like to make a quick introduction? Like Sue, I think most of the people here I've seen before.
Yeah, I don't see anybody new that I don't at least know the name of. Yeah, a small group today, which means we've got opportunities. Maybe you all can go ahead and start thinking about questions you have and
Yeah.
put them in the chat. We'd love to see them now, even before we get started. It looks like Clovis has his hand raised.
I just found him. I see it.
Good.
Okay. Hi there.
Okay. So yeah, first time joining. So Clovis Schaff, I'm based in Boston in software engineering, French US national, and looking for engineering leadership opportunities still in the greater Boston area. And that's it, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. And I see one more. No, it's you. Is that it? No other hands? Okay. Then we're going to go directly into what we're doing. By the way, as Sue mentioned, put your questions in the chat with the words all in caps. If you have something that you picked up, what other people I think call golden nuggets, an idea that really works, please make sure that you're writing it not only in the chat, but don't just say, yay, that's great. We want to know what yay is, okay, and how you're going to be using it. And that's important, not only for people who are reading the chat for the first time, but as you go back and read it, as we're reading it and we're commenting, it's important for us to know what it is that made mention for you, what worked for you. And then if you're going to make a post afterwards, okay, that would be great too. Share something that you've learned and make sure that you're tagging, okay, Dana, make sure that you're tagging me, make sure that you're tagging Sue, anyone else from this group as well. It's really important to do that. All right, I'm going to let Dana introduce herself.
Wonderful. Oh, what a great group. I am so excited to be here with y'all. And today we're going to talk about relationships for the win. And I do know, Linda let me know that y'all are very conversational. And so I want to give us plenty of time for questions and discussion. But before we do that, I do have some slides I wanted to share to lay the foundation.
That's fine. And while you're pulling those up, Dana and I also met online. We met in another group. And so we developed that relationship that way. That's one of the things that work. That's why I say that these relationships, these networking meetings, these conversations are so important to not only building your network, but building your learning, building your connections, building your support group. Dana, before you actually start sharing your slides, can you tell us a little bit about you and make sure that you put some information in the chat so that we know about you and how to contact you as well? You can do that now or at the end.
I sure can. I dropped my information in at the beginning and I will do it again at the end. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, well then we are going to start off with a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know me, I am a certified executive and leadership coach. I've been doing this since about 2016. I'm also a certified team facilitator, and so I do lots of workshops and trainings for teams. This is all based on a foundation of many, many years in corporate and agencies. And truly what I found is that a lot of the people that I worked with, including myself, we actually liked a lot of what we did. But there were frustrations in the role that I think a lot of smart, successful people struggle with. And through the coach training and experience and ongoing education, I have found ways to support people other than getting that website up at midnight, which still had its moments. And so now I'm very excited to continue to support people in being more successful without adding more to their plate.
Perfect.
before we dig into relationships themselves, I just wanted to touch on really the framework that I use in most of my work. And there really are three pillars to it. The first one is we always start and weave through clarity, because it's really important for us to know what's important to us, what lights us up, what not so much. But beyond that, it's important for us to understand our family, our friends, our personal lives, as well as what's important in our organization, what's important to our team, our department, our boss, what's important to the stakeholders that we are talking to. And all of those things are going to feed into really the third pillar that we're going to be focusing on today, which is relationships. And I would dare to bet that the majority of people, when you are working, you at some point have to deal with other people. So not only are we talking about relationships in order to perhaps secure that next opportunity, but we're really talking about relationships as an ongoing system that we want to make sure that we're incorporating into everything we do. All right, so why are relationships so important? I'd like to start us off with a little bit of a stat that grounds us in why we are having some of these conversations. So 70% of jobs are not even advertised on websites, and 85% of the vacancies are filled via referrals. You'll find variety on these stats. Of course, they are kind of run across the board, but I think the sentiment here is accurate. So if you are just looking at job boards and job postings for jobs, you are missing out on opportunities that are going to be a great fit for you. Even the jobs that are posted, you have a leg up if you have a relationship, if you have somebody who can introduce you to that opportunity. So it's big. But it is not just about getting that job. It goes beyond job hunting, and it's really about kind of integrated into everything we do in our roles. So if you're in an organization, I will also guarantee you that the new projects, the promotions, all of those things are not posted for everyone to decide if they are interested in. Those are things that will come up as you are in conversation, in relationships, and talk to people about what you're interested in and what you are looking for. So this is a skill that's going to go really across your entire career. It is going to give you insight into what's going on outside of your organization, inside your organization, on your specific projects. There's information that you are not going to be getting through official channels that you are going to be getting from relationships. And you're going to continue to get support. So we have seen again and again that once you have a relationship with somebody, they are just more apt to trust you. They are more apt to know you. They are more apt to making sure that you are set up for the right opportunities, that you are looking for the right things, that if you have a question or a problem, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And so we want to make sure that we're consistently looking at building those relationships to make our lives easier and closer to what we want. All right, so we've talked a little bit about why relationships are important. I want to sort of talk about the elephant in the room, is that people don't love networking. And that's one of the first things that we think about when we think about developing particularly new relationships. And so what we want to do here is we want to kind of reframe this a little bit. So what is networking? So networking is meeting people and developing relationships. One of the things we talked about already in this group is that there are relationships that are built in this context. And so these are things where, again, I would guarantee you that y'all have relationships already, that you have people that you're comfortable talking to. And so if we think about sort of the human and natural aspect of making connections, talking to people that we are interested in, have shared interests and likes and desires with, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about natural relationships. We're not talking about these awkward transactional relationships. All right. So as we're starting to particularly sort of reignite some of these relationships, we always talk to people about reach out to people you know. And here's where I also get some pushback. A lot of times people don't want to bother them. Everyone is busy. We get it. It's been too long and they feel like they're coming up out of the blue. And they don't want to feel like they are making an ask. They don't want to pop up out of nowhere with an ask. So let's not pop up out of nowhere with an ask. Let's be realistic and acknowledge what this is. If it's been a minute since we've talked to some of our contacts, acknowledge that. So we can tell people, you know what? It has been a minute. And now that I'm between jobs, it gives me some time to reconnect with the people that I really want to talk to. It gives me an opportunity to go back and reignite some of these relationships, people that I really like. I haven't talked to you in a while, and I regret that. I've been thinking about you, and I wanted to reach out now. So we're being sincere about these relationships. We are reconnecting, and we are making this a habit so that we're not going to drop these relationships again because we know these relationships are not transactional. It's not just about getting us to our next step. It is about nurturing our network so that we have those relationships that we're continuing to have. And it is not just about one relationship. It's not just about people in our current job if we are in a job. A robust network isn't any one thing. And so we really want to start thinking about how can we keep our web, as we have displayed here, of people in our network. And so that we're connecting with people who, if we're in a role, people who are inside our organization, mentors and sponsors, stakeholders, subject matter experts, friends and cheerleaders. Even if we are in an organization, we want to be connecting to people outside of our organization. We want to be connecting to people who are in similar roles. We want to be connecting to mentors who actually aren't in our direct line of report so that we have other perspectives and relationships that we can do. Like a spider web, if one of these strands should break, we want to have a really robust network so that we always have people in our network to do this. And part of what we do is not only creating those networks, but also sort of nurturing those networks and making sure that we're continuing to connect. Okay, but let's not get overwhelmed. The other challenge that we have is that some people are just hesitant to kind of get started. Maybe you are already doing some outreach today, but if you're not, think about scheduling just a 10-minute time block on your calendar to start with. If you've already got some outreach, try and intersperse a few more of those 10-minute time blocks so that you have an opportunity to reach out to people. Send notes. So this made me think of you. I ran into so-and-so. Oh, I saw that you're doing this. I was really excited. I'd like to learn more. I loved the way that you were able to support me on this project. Any of those notes, again, we're talking about a true natural relationship. So think about how you're reaching out to people. And again, this is whatever way feels comfortable for that contact. So if it's somebody that you talk to them. If it's somebody that you email them. If it's somebody that you just know on LinkedIn, then we can play in the LinkedIn network. LinkedIn is truly our best friend when we talk about nurturing and creating some of these relationships. So if people are posting, comment, engage. Have posts up there that are kind of reminding people who we are and what we are doing and what we are looking for. This is such a great opportunity to continue to do that. I see a little hand raised with David there. Wanted to check in and see if we had a question.
Yeah, that's I raised my hand. So I have been having, let's call them intro or coffee chats.
Yep.
3 to 7 or 8 weekly for the last few months. It's nice to have the conversations. That makes me feel better. In some ways, it's just dumping my resume out, but it doesn't seem to. I mean, very rarely does one conversation lead to the next. You have a nice chat and you're done. And maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it doesn't seem to lead places. especially if the other person, it isn't really like in my field and we can't like mix that way. Like if they're in engineering, see, I'm going to data analytics,
Mhm.
and not that many people that I run into seem to be going into that. I get HR people and engineers and the high up IT people and stuff like that. So what do you recommend that or how I might change things so it's not just a friendly coffee chat
Yeah.
for 15 minutes, that it actually leads to something?
Yeah. Well, so the
Even if
one slide that I'm going to give you a spoiler alert on is my favorite magical question is who do you know? So when we have those opportunities, if you're speaking to somebody who's in an organization that you like, or somebody who works with people who are maybe in analytics, who do you know that is in this role, who is at this organization? So whether that's something we learn something in the conversation and that's lighting us up and we're saying like, oh, I would love to learn more
yeah.
about this. Who do you know who knows something about that topic?
Oftentimes I'll ask that and they'll say, oh, let me give it some thought and I'll get back to you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they don't get back to me.
Yeah, yeah. And that is for sure the reality of things. And I think we can open this up for a conversation as we get into the discussion part of this, because I think probably there are more tips that people have. But one of the realities of this is it's a numbers game. So some of these conversations and relationships aren't going to lead to an action or an outcome, but we never know when that magical opportunity is. And so that's why we want to have this as a habit and a system so that we're continuing to have these coffee chats. And then once we've had that coffee chat, we're continuing to get on those people's radar. So maybe that's somebody where, again, that's a person that you ping them on LinkedIn or you comment on their post. And so you're keeping yourself top of mind. And they're like, oh, I totally forgot. I got busy, but I had somebody that I wanted to refer to David. Or
So if I understand, I'm sorry to interrupt.
go
If I
ahead.
understand you, what you're getting at is, okay, it's not leading to anything right now. Then there's nothing wrong with that. But if I
There's
keep
no
at it, a couple months
exactly.
down the road, 3 months down the road, it may lead to something. Is what we're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. And we want to keep some of those intentional strategic thinking as we're in those relationships so that we're continuing to plant the seed, continuing to talk about who we are and what we're looking for so that we're shoring up all of those conversations so that we're the first person that they're going to think of when an opportunity comes up. We're also going to continue to be giving to our network. We are going to continue to be nurturing it in a way that is not transactional. Because again, we don't know where of these things are going to go or when these relationships are going to be beneficial. Because we might just like these people. It might just be somebody that we had a really interesting conversation with, and we want to make sure that we're nurturing that conversation. We have limited time, and so we might choose that there are some people who are spending, like if we have a great conversation, we might get another coffee chat going with that person. If that person doesn't feel like they're as plugged into what we do or what we're interested in, then maybe that's a person that we just ping them occasionally, so that we have sort of different systems and we're prioritizing as we're doing those.
Dana, are you open to questions now, or would you like them at the end?
Let's go through a couple more slides and then we'll open it up. So the other thing that we really want to be thinking about is if we're in an organization, we want to make sure that we're continuing to nurture our peers and our support within that. So a lot of people that I know, they get single focus. They are working on their project. They are only working on their project. But part of your job is to create these relationships. It is not just a benefit to you, it is a benefit to the organization for you to have these systems in place. So show up to the optional cross-functional related project meetings. So meetings that are sort of would you might not normally attend so that you can get some face time and you can meet some of those players who are working on some of those projects. Sit next to someone new in a meeting. This is one of the strategies that I talked to one of my clients. They have a weekly meeting on site and they always sit next to the same person. So what they were going to do is they were just going to sit next to different people so that they could have a chat with them about what's going on in that sort of intro outro in those conversations. Volunteer for strategic projects. Again, whether this is a subject matter or a leadership visibility play, we want to think about where we are putting ourselves so that we're getting face time with the people who we want to have relationships with. And yes, we want to attend our office events. I know we don't always want to go to the happy hour, but there typically are a lot of other opportunities to do that. And yeah, maybe you show up to the happy hour and you just have FaceTime with one person that you have a conversation with that you might not normally have, and then you skedaddle. But there are lots of opportunities to really just make those connections within your organization. And of course, we can go to official networking events. But this here is an area, I was working with one of my clients who wanted to network more in her position and in her industry. But the thought of going into a networking event was just not something that she wanted to do. So what we really talked about is like, what lights her up? What are the things, when does she feel more comfortable? When are the conversations that she has that feel good? And what we talked about is she wanted to be more task oriented. She wanted to go to an event where they had a speaker, for example, who is a subject matter expert, and then be able to talk to the people around her. So think about the kinds of things that you naturally are more inclined to do, so that you can go to some place where you are more comfortable. And yes, we want to probably push you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And so one of the things we talked about is there are networking events. And so what are some strategies that she could use on networking events? One of the systems we came up with was having a buddy. So if she could go to the events or attend online the events with someone else, that was a great opportunity for her to have a little bit of comfort and then somebody that they could mutually kind of talk to people. The other thing we did is we gave her a role so that when she went to an in-person event, she would look to those people who are standing by themselves, and she would go and talk to them as a giving, as something to make that person feel more comfortable at the events. And it immediately gave her a sense of confidence at the events. So again, there is a way to find those moments where you're reaching out to other people and having those connections, where you're doing it in a way that feels natural, even if we are pushing ourselves a little bit. And of course, we want to be able to practice our messaging. We want to be ready, not only with the role that we are looking for, but what are we focused on? What's exciting you? What things do you love? So that you're creating this sort of personal brand, which is a whole nother topic, of who you are and what you're looking for, so that people will start to identify you with the kinds of things that they want to keep you in mind for. Again, I gave you a tease for my power question for those about who do you know. And again, this is not a do you know someone who? We want to make sure that we are framing it this way as more open. And again, they may not have somebody offhand. They may follow up with us. They may not follow up with us, but always having that door open, particularly when we're having those conversations, so that we've got this as a back pocket question so that we can usually use this. The best way to grow our network is through our network. And so if we can have somebody make us an introduction, even on LinkedIn, and introduce us to somebody, that's a great opportunity for us to have a further connection. I wanted to offer y'all a free little gift. I'll drop the URL in the chat for this as well. But you know what? There's a lot of conversations that happen in a variety of relationships in real time that sometimes leave us frozen or awkward. And so I've created a little toolkit with sample questions and statements for a variety of situations, and you can download your free copy. Okay, I love a quote. So I wanted to leave us with one from our friend Teddy Roosevelt. The most important single ingredient is in the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. Again, relationships are the things that make work easier, opportunities clearer, and careers more fulfilling. Success is not a solo sport. So think about starting with one conversation. All right, and I want to leave us time again so that we can answer those questions, have a little bit of a conversation about some of these things, the reality of what is hitting people. I will again drop my information in the chat again. I would love to answer any questions here. And if you think of something later, you want to continue the conversation, please reach out to me. I would love to continue there. All right. Sorry, I have trouble following the chat while I'm doing that. So I
That's
will
okay.
also.
That's why we do it ourselves, and I always have fun following it when I'm in the middle of all of this too, so.
It's a lot. We're multitaskers, but there's a limit.
It is a lot. Okay, so I saw it at least earlier, Pam Lefkowitz. Pam, would you like to ask your question? If I can find you.
Sure. Does it
Okay.
help if I talk? Then you get my green circle around me. I highlight. There you are.
Here you go.
Hi.
Hi, Dana. Yeah, I was asking about tracking. You were talking about, having the conversation and following up with somebody and then following up and tracking all that for some of us who maybe aren't as rigid in our note taking as others, because we're not salespeople, we're
Yep.
other types of leaders. I've tried CRMs, I've tried keeping it on a spreadsheet. It's like I need just a formula. I need a template for how to keep track of these things so that I actually do it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna give you an answer that maybe is gonna be a little disappointing in that different systems work for different people.
Of course.
So I don't think there's one right formula, but what I would say is keep it simple. So one piece of this is, again, I would naturally say like maybe you can use a spreadsheet to do that. I know you've said that you've tried spreadsheets and it's not always solving that. One of the things too that is helpful is if you're using LinkedIn a lot or you're using email, kind of thinking about the tools that you're using and just for LinkedIn, going through your conversations. So go through any of those chats that you've been having so that you're going through and you're saying like, I haven't talked to this person in a long time. Going through your network so that you're doing some of those things. If you're talking to people on email, pulling it into a folder so that you have some of those things that you can go back to. The other tool that I don't know if you've tried is things like a Fathom note taker. So if you're using that, these have actually gotten pretty nifty. I'm not sure if other people are using some of these variety of AI note takers, but when you're doing coffee chats, that can be a great tool because you just add the note taker to your Zoom meeting, and it captures the notes, and so you can go back and reference some of those things that maybe you forgot you were going to follow up on, or they said that they were going to follow up on. And so it might be having kind of a native system for the way that you're talking to people to keep track of it. It could be as simple as, maybe you have a note that's a list of people, and then you write like the last date that you talked to them. Again, if that's digital, that's probably the easiest, whatever note-taking app you use, so that you're going through and doing that. So that you're doing two things. One is going through and reconnecting with the people that you have connected with. And then the other is just looking on your LinkedIn maybe, or who you're talking to and creating some of those new connections. Hopefully that was a little bit helpful. We've got some suggestions for, again, Fathom Note Taker to add to your Zoom chat. And there's a couple of those. I use Fathom. It seems to be pretty common, and it's free. So we can use that to add. Again, I think Linda was echoing, and just a simple Excel spreadsheet can be a really easy way to kind of do those.
Great, thank you. Did that help, Pam?
A little bit.
Okay, I also asked people in the chat if there's a way that you are tracking your calls, just add them into the chat so that we can figure out, or we can see what other people are using. It gives us another way of getting some validation, seeing what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like what I might actually need is maybe we can do this one day as a CRM, like a CRM session.
We can do a roundtable about how do we track all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because CRMs obviously can be a way to do that. And again, there's free levels with a lot of these
Right.
that have some of that functionality where we can keep our notes and have our reminders. A lot of those can also be automated so that we're at different price levels. So that
Right.
we're capturing email correspondence, we're forwarding notes to our CRM so that it's keeping track of some of those things so that we don't have to manually input everything. So they can be a great benefit.
Mhm. Sue.
So
And one option would be, and it's for most of us who probably don't download our LinkedIn data every so often, but LinkedIn gives you a spreadsheet of your connections, and it tells you whatever they have in their headline, their latest position, and who they're working for, and the date. So at least it's already set up for you if indeed you're pursuing LinkedIn folks, because they may not be in your DMs. You may not, they
Yeah.
sent you a connection message, and like me, sometimes I don't write back all the time, if it's a salesperson. So, I'm just trying to give you a free jump start, because I think if you're really, what Dana's saying and what Linda was emphasizing is, it is worth tracking your efforts, just
Yeah.
like you track your job search efforts. And I know Teal and others are there. So before you even start on free versions of anything else, try that, because the spreadsheet's already created, it downloads easily, and you can open it up and just find people.
Yeah, and I I have done that. It's
Oh, good.
I am
Okay.
not coming from a place of I have done nothing. I
And
have
I should have
downloaded
asked you if you'd thought about that.
I've downloaded all my data. I've even been using this app called Clay, except that it is slow and cumbersome and it doesn't refresh well. And so because of that, I don't use it. If the tool isn't, this was kind of what I did for a living, right? I recommended tools to people because I
Well, I
right.
didn't want to say anything, Pam, but I thought this was funny. Thank you for admitting that you don't do what you should do, and you should use this or that, but
I don't, because the tool
it's cumbersome.
doesn't make my life easier. It made my life harder.
And a lot of times going to the simplest solution is really the best place to start. We can always get more complicated moving on. But part of the process here too, as it sounds like I'm sure you know, is getting in the habit. So having that be part of our process when we talk to people. And so having that be something where we're really intentional about it, particularly in the beginning, while we're setting up that habit, and then figuring out what's really getting in our way of keeping up with that. So that we can solve for the actual problems, as opposed to, like you were saying, like that just doesn't work. And so then we can start to look at okay, well, what's not working about it for me, so that I can start to figure out what might be some solves there.
As a thought, sorry, Pam, as a thought, like OneNote, or I'm sure even Evernote, or whatever note-taking system you use, if it's digital, typically also allows you to put checkboxes in, and sort of right at the end, you could always just sort of copy and paste and build a checklist at the bottom. It can tie into things like Todoist or other things that would remind you. But I sort of like the Microsoft ecosystem over the Google ecosystem. OneNote allows you to synchronize through their OneDrive, and you can pick it up on Mac, Windows, iPhone, or Android. So there are options of, whatever your platform is, I'm sure they have the capability to put a checklist into it.
Good. Thank you. Jason, you got your hand up. Let me get you on screen.
I do. So a question in regards, really an extension to this conversation, but slightly veering off. I think for all of us, when you're in a job, and in many cases when we're looking for a job, a lot of this applies, where there's this focus in how do we individually organize ourselves, but then I feel like there's a management of the organization. So in other words, you come up with an organizational process, whether that's to manage your tasks and projects, your conversations with either colleagues internally or others, maybe notes in a networking call. There's the process of, again, as we've said, either spreadsheet or Monday.com or CMS. There's all of that, right? And there's, how do we individually come up with that organizational process that works for each one of us? And then there's I kind of consider, as I said, there's this management of that organization. So general, I want to just dive into something very, very quickly about my experience. A challenge that I had, but it didn't just impact me, it impacted a lot of people. And then just kind of open this up if that's okay, to just anybody who has, Dana in particular, but anybody who has a thought. I worked for a company, came in to lead their marketing function. So the equivalent of a CMO, not that title. And I had direct reports, and the company historically gets a lot of ad hoc requests that come in, different project requests, things that are needed, sales materials, things for not, they're not just for the sales team, et cetera, et cetera. But they come in the quantity of, 1 to 300 requests a week. And so it's a high volume in that specific case for a very small team. And so I was often faced with the situation of, you have to manage the organization of what's coming in. And in the company, the CRM, we used Monday.com. I've used others as well. But even Monday, when you can customize a dashboard, didn't really help when you've got that large of a volume or quantity of ad hoc things coming in. Is there maybe a best practice? And again, Dana, as you mentioned earlier, it kind of hints maybe it works different for different people. But is there a best practice that for any one of us, either in a job, out of a job, when managing maybe job applications, resumes, et cetera, is there a good practice, best practice for higher quantity of things that you're dealing with? And then again, as a side note to that, how do you properly manage that on an individual basis to make sure that you can be successful at the end of the day and get through all of what you need to get through?
So there's some complexity to that question.
Yes.
So I think, again, you're talking about a few different things. And so one is sort of a little bit less about a tool than an approach. And so I think, what you're talking about is really kind of taking a step back and evaluating, like, what is my need sort of on these individual tasks and what is the overarching need? Again, if there's something that is a high quantity that's coming in, if your tool, like if you're using a Monday.com and it's not sufficient for that, thinking about, again, kind of like we were talking about that, it's like breaking down where really is the issue on this process and what do we need to do to address it. If it's a big enough price point in an organization, of time and money and things like that, then the company is probably willing to invest in an appropriate system for something individual. If it's a one-off ad hoc thing that affects a small amount of people, then you kind of got to go with what the system is that they're using. And I think really looking at those things that are done on a repeated basis is figuring out where you can, I like to say digitize, but where you can systematize the things that you're doing so that it is less about how you're handling each of those things, less about the person and more about the process. That's not necessarily a specific answer to, I think, what you're asking, but that's kind of the holistic approach of the way that I would look at those things. I'm sure other people have thoughts. Yeah.
That's helpful.
Good, thank you. David, you got a question? Let me get you up here too.
Yes, I do. When you send out connection requests via LinkedIn, I've been making more of those and getting more because I've been focused on people who viewed my profile. Do you have any advice as to how to write a good LinkedIn connection request?
Yeah, I'm sure our friends here have some thoughts on that. But my one tip is if you're having a request, be specific about where you know this person, what why you want to continue this connection. Because a lot of times, like if you're coming from a networking event, they might not remember exactly, and so they might want a refresher. So the more specific you can get about you, and how you made that connection, the more likely it is for them to accept that request. But then also it's going to help moving forward as they go in a conversation, they can refer back and say like, oh, that's how we connected, as you continue to build the relationship.
Does it help if they've viewed your profile first? I think it does.
Yeah, I mean, if they have viewed your profile, then that can be a great opportunity for you to reach out and, ask them, say, oh, you were viewing my profile. If you love to learn more, or I see you are involved in X, like I'd love to connect more on that. So that again, we're getting specific about those things.
Okay,
Now,
thank you. That's a big help. It's a very big
okay,
help.
for those of you who have the free accounts, remember you're not going to see everybody.
Yeah.
Fortunately, but it does give you an indication. And if somebody does reach out and looks at your profile, you have an automatic connection message in your head. They saw something in that profile that they wanted to talk, that intrigued them enough to want to have a conversation. Remind them that they saw your profile and then go from there.
Yeah, Linda, I would add one item to that. And there is character limitations
I'm
on
sorry, who's
information.
this?
Oh, this is Martin.
So, yeah, you can.
Hi, Linda.
We like to be able to know who you are when you're
Yeah,
contributing.
Martin Zapata.
Okay.
Yeah, so I come from an IT background, but LinkedIn has limitations on the character length. And for those of us that have been in our careers for a long time, we don't always have enough space to really put some of the key highlights relevant to things we've done throughout our career. So that's where when somebody comes and visits your profile, you can take that context and say, hey, if you want to know anything else about my career that I haven't included, please reach out, because that would give the potential recruiter or additional person that viewed your profile a chance to think about what did they see on your profile and what were they missing. Maybe there's additional information that I can come back and connect with you to chat with about. So, but having a LinkedIn profile that has sufficient information on there is the lure to get people to find your profile and then connect. So,
and that's a good way of putting it, is that it's a lure. Your LinkedIn profile isn't everything. Your LinkedIn profile has to be complete so that people know what you're all about. But if it's everything there, nobody has to reach out to you. The other thing is that many people will reach out to you and find that profile because of something you've made in a comment or a post that you've had. So the connecting, those comments, the engagement is one of the things that will drive people to your profile. You can see in your notifications who commented on a post. You can see who commented on a comment. Okay. That's another way of getting that automatic message, because that's how you have that something in common. And it's another way of starting that conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
And
But-
I was just going to say the character count is a thing on that. And so again, I use my buddy ChatGPT a lot of times if I'm trying to say a number of things in a communication. And so it can be a great help in just sort of getting it down to the character count of things that you're doing to save you some time.
Sue.
I was just going to say that one thing, because of the limits of free accounts with 5 messages a month, is when you make a comment on someone's post and then send the connection message, they know why you're not writing a note. Like, I connected with Dana and I'm thinking, I think she'll remember my name, so I mean, it's not,
I remember you, Sue.
It's not guaranteed, but I mean, I want people to think about, you're not only giving the engagement value there because obviously they wrote something that you wanted to, or you're getting the system to say, I want to work at this company, I'll make a nice comment. Either way, you're not asking them to do something, you are giving them value and then asking, which is what has been I'm pointing to the chat all through the thread and what we talk about every week. You can't ask for something, you've got to give value to get value. So yeah, so I think that's just the 5 thing is reminding me as I was connecting with a few people today here.
I know.
You don't waste your message on something that should be pretty obvious.
Yep.
And also give people the grace. A lot of people that have a lot of connection requests. I was listening to Brenda Miller talk about this the other day in our group, Linda, about how she goes through them once a week. So she doesn't accept people right away. And so don't obsess. If you don't hear right away, just keep the commenting and engagement going. It's not going to hurt, because if it's not that company getting back to you, someone else may notice how engaged you are.
That's right. And here's one more thing. is that in some cases, people have enabled what's called open messaging on their profiles.
Right.
It's something that I highly recommend. A lot of people are uncomfortable about it because you may get some spam, and that's true, but you're going to get spam no matter what you do on this platform. So I think the value outweighs the negative. If you enable, and it's in your privacy settings, anyone to message you, they don't have to be a connection. So if somebody has message on their profile, it may not work, but try that first, especially if you have limited connection requests. But the other reason to use it is even if you have those connection requests, there's no limit. There is a much larger limit in terms of word count for those messages, even if you're not connected to anyone, than there is in those connection request messages. So try it. And for yourselves, please enable it. I think it's going to be worth your while. Okay, thank you. Next, anybody else?
Looks like Caitlin.
Caitlin, can you raise your digital hand so we can find you? I found
Digital
you.
hands up. Jeffrey was first.
I got it. Jeff was there. We've already done him. Let's add you.
Get up.
There you are.
All right. Have a sort of off question on the LinkedIn connections, but this is coming, I think, through LinkedIn and has just been pertinent lately, and I'm hoping to pick the hive brain, which is that I've been getting emails lately from recruiters, but coming from Gmail addresses and having kind of shaky links to websites, and they have very refined AI summaries of what I do and why I might be of interest to them. But at the same time, I'm a little hesitant about the legitimacy of some of the folks that are contacting me, and I'm wondering if is there risk in sending the requested resume and information to those folks? Is it reasonably safe to go that far and then stop if they ask for money on something? Is there any guidance from everybody in terms of these folks that are waving small flags for me that could be legitimate, but also could very easily not be?
So the first thing is, if it's raising that red flag for you, listen to the gut. Okay, see what it is they're looking for. But this is one of the conversations we're going to be having on October 29th. Okay, it's specifically dealing with those kinds of issues again. So please make sure you join us and bring your question at that point.
Can do. Just looking at these guys going,
okay, you check them out, look to see their profile. Okay, check to see their comments for other people, because you can see their comments too. If they're writing the same thing to everybody, red flag. Okay, check to see whether or not they actually have experience doing what it is they say they're doing, what they're reaching out for. Check to see if they're affiliated with the company that they're talking about. And you can also put them into a ChatGPT search, find out about them, do the picture, see whether or not they're a real person and what their background really is. So there are lots of ways of trying to find it out. But yes, you have to be careful. Unfortunately, the number of spams are growing every single day.
in everything.
It's terrible. In fact, while we're on the call, I just got one. Okay. So, they're everywhere, and I'm not looking for a job.
Right.
I love what I do. So you do have to be careful about some of those. If you're ever in doubt and you want to have somebody check it out, DM me, send me an email, and I'll help you to look it out.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry for taking us slightly off subject. It's just been
No, that's okay.
pertinent in the last few days.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all. Okay, if you've got ideas for us, please make sure that you add them into the chat. Remember the word idea or speaker, because I'm planning now for the I can't believe I'm saying this, for the remainder of the year. Okay.
We're there.
we're getting there, folks. Okay. And we want to make sure that we're there. So we mentioned that next week, we're actually going to be doing kind of a follow-up to this idea, the idea of networking. What are we talking about? We're going to be talking about do we know you? How can we figure out who you are? What you're saying about you? What do your information work? And then we'll actually do some small group networking. Okay. And that's another way that follows up on Dana, sit next to somebody new. We do random group joining. You'll meet several different people. You have an opportunity to talk with them. That one usually runs about a half an hour over if you're willing to stay, but it's another way of meeting and adding to your network and finding out more about people, and more importantly, having them find out about you as well. So that's an important thing. Thanks, Jason. I will add that to the list. Okay. And then on the 29th, we're going to be doing something, the career transition scaries, scams, and ghosts. So we're going to be using that. Bring your questions. I know you're going to have those ideas and those suggestions you're going to share with us. We're going to use that session as well to do a little bit of a cracked crystal ball. Here's what we're seeing in terms of the job market. Because I'm going to tell you that's scary right now. I had one of my connections tell me that her husband was just told that 6,000 people in his company are going to be laid off at the end of the week. Those layoffs are continuing, and we know that. And that means that whatever you're doing in your career search has to be very intentional. You have to make sure that you're in charge. We can't control things. What you can control is your networking. You can control your LinkedIn profile. You can control how you reach out to people, both in terms of networking as well as in terms of the way you're sending yourself out there in terms of your applications, your contacts, your follow-up with people. And you can control how you're presenting yourself as an expert by those comments and those suggestions and those posts that you make. So that's really important. Now, one of the things that we mentioned earlier, that Dana mentioned, was the idea of, how do people actually find their jobs? That networking is important. We absolutely know that it is. But every once in a while, I'll do a post, and I actually put one out this week, and just put the link into it. I can't figure out how to shorten it right now. But it's a poll asking for people who did land, whether it's an interview or a job recently, what did they use to get their foot in the door? And if you've landed an interview, I'd love to know. Please participate in the poll. I'll share the results not only here in the group, but I'll share them on LinkedIn as well. But right now, the results are not what many people would expect, but I did. So far, what people are saying is, and again, it's early in the poll, we're only on day 3. But right now, people are saying direct reach out to companies through the applications as opposed to the networking. The networking is the support, but the networking, at least in their poll so far, isn't what got their foot in the door initially. It helps. And as a recruiter, putting my hat on, if you have a networking contact or a name, even if it's somebody who can't attest to the great things that you've done, it is guaranteed at least that a human eye will look at it. Okay. And that's really what you really want. So all of that is there. Anything else that I can do for you today, or that Dana can? Dana, please put your information in the chat one more time, as well as the link to your freebie.
Absolutely.
Okay. As people are leaving, I want to remind you to copy the chat. Okay. You can do it in 2 different ways. Actually, I'm going to turn off the recording.